lawyers, because they know too much, what can go wrong, they're the least risk takers and normally not great business runners. Not sometimes they are, but very rare. I really have never had one email or one comment by any employee for talking about God, leading in prayer at a function. Don't be afraid. I think we ought to solve all of our litigation through AI.
From luxury hotels to the Vegas Golden Knights, Tim Busch has never separated faith from business. He explains why wearing his Catholic faith boldly has never held him back. It has only helped him succeed. Welcome to the 11 Talents Podcast.
All right, Tim Busch, thank you for joining me on the 11 Talents Podcast. You are, the quintessential Legatus member when I think of one. Somebody that has really taken their faith into all spheres of public life. And I want to get into a lot of that with you. You're known for the wine. You have a winery, Trinitas Winery. You have hotels. You started a law firm. Your family growing up had grocery stores. And to this day, we see them here in Michigan, Busch's grocery stores. You had, was it a hockey team?
Yes, hockey. Biggest Golden Knights.
Is there anything that you haven't done that you're still waiting for that opportunity? And you have a school with your name on it? Like, what else are you looking to try to grab?
I really don't know. Whatever God brings my way. And I had no intention of owning a piece of a hockey team or now soccer teams in England.
Which soccer team? That's important.
Bournemouth, which is not as well known as Arsenal and Man City and Man United, but we beat Arsenal and we just beat Crystal Palace last Saturday. So I get
not doing too shabby.
Yeah,
then.
We're not doing too shabby.
So you grew up here in a small town in Michigan. Can you tell me a little bit about your upbringing?
Yeah, that was another practical joke from God. I was born in a tiny town of Clinton, Michigan. Nobody knows where it's at. They always want to confuse it with Clinton Township on the east side. I say I'm from Ann Arbor because nobody knows where Clinton is. And there's 1,000 people. And I worked at my dad's supermarket since I was 7 until they caught me there at age 11 and said I was being child labor. And so what? I was making a lot of money. Right. And so I went out and started doing mowing lawns and delivering newspapers. And that was kind of my business acumen developed. So it's a great town to be raised in. I left and never went back other than for visiting my parents.
Yeah. So your dad had a grocery store. Did he start that grocery store?
Yeah. My dad, after World War II, he and his war buddy from that area, in those days, when you went to war, they would let you go in the same group as friends of yours, so that you would be encouraged. Mm-hmm. And so when they got out, they started butchering meat and getting into that side of it. And supermarkets didn't exist, so they started what we would call a party store these days. Mm-hmm. They started a small supermarket,
or like a convenience store for those outside of Michigan. Then
exactly. And exactly.
I didn't know what a party store was when I first moved here. I was like, what is this?
Neither did my wife. They built it with their own hands and worked in the factory during the day and built at night and started the business.
Wow.
In 1948.
And so you're the second oldest of 6. Yes. You've got 4 brothers, 1 sister.
Right.
You ended up going to school here in Michigan and then law school? Yeah,
I went to Western Michigan undergrad, got an accounting degree, became a CPA, and then I went to law school in 1975, graduated in 78.
Okay.
And Wayne State Law School was a state school, inexpensive, just like Western, and you could afford it. All of us went to school, to higher ed, but we paid 100%, including my sister, of our tuition, but it was possible in those days.
Right. So everybody, I think, that knows you thinks of Tim Busch from Orange County. Mm-hmm. But yet you're saying you're from Michigan. How did that transition happen? How did you get to Southern Cal?
So everybody has a rich uncle, and I had one. And my dad's brother, their mother died when my uncle was 3 and my dad was like 8.
Okay.
And so my uncle never really knew his true biological mother, but his his my grandfather married their nanny in a Catholic wedding. His wife was dead, and she was taking care of the kids, and he married her. And then sometime later in life, she moved to California. And then my uncle ultimately gravitated to Southern California. He was a successful businessman, entrepreneur. And I went and visited him after I graduated from law school. I'd never been to California. And it was my uncle who met my now wife and told me, you should marry her. And he'd only known her for a minute, but he just knew what I did when I met her. I said, I'm going to marry this girl. Took me 3.5 years, but I did. And we've been married almost 41 years.
Wow, congratulations. And you've got 2 kids of your own now.
2 children, 11 grandchildren.
Wow.
That was another big happening. We were figuring maybe we get 4 or 5, but got 11.
Multiplied them with, you've got a few sets of twins or triplets, right?
A set of triplets and a set of twins.
That's beautiful.
Yeah, my son.
Your family very clearly has business in the background. Your dad, your uncle, you, now your kids, your brothers. I mean, what do you think sets your family apart from others to give them this business acumen?
It's a really good question. I ask that often. I attribute it to my father, who was an entrepreneur, and I really didn't know anything else. And I think for most people, especially coming out of the 60s and 70s, there wasn't that many small businesses. It was controlled mostly by larger businesses. And there wasn't a lot of capital available. So to me, I always wanted to own my own business. So I worked for a law firm here in Ann Arbor for a year. I didn't like it. I wanted to be on my own. So I started my own law firm. And I was already involved in the supermarkets with my dad since 1975. And so I just love creating businesses. And my son is exactly the same. He's always got an idea for a new business. And I'm like, hey, Garrett, let's get this one running right here. How about that concept?
Yeah.
And my daughter is pretty entrepreneurial as well. So.
And she works within the company too,
she does,
right?
Yeah. She's part of our organization, but she starts a lot of things, mostly in the nonprofit sector.
Okay.
She has Lyme disease, so she's very focused on the solution for Lyme. And but she does other charities as well.
Yeah.
She's very into that.
So do you think it was more of the business acumen that you saw from your family and the entrepreneurial spirit or the idea that risk is not a big deal to you, the risk taking, because I think that's what entrepreneurs have and sets them apart.
I thrive on risk taking, and most people don't, especially lawyers. Lawyers, because they know too much, what can go wrong. They're the least risk takers, and normally not great business runners. Not sometimes they are, but very rare.
That's a good point. Like lawyers, you think they want to do everything to get away from liability, but you run after it, right?
Yeah, that you just know too much. You know what can happen, and especially if you're a litigator, you know all the things that can go wrong. But you've only seen the things that go wrong. The things that go right don't end up in your office if you're a litigator. If you're a business lawyer like I was, I saw a lot of successful people. And our number one goal is to stay out of court. Even if somebody wronged us, the goal was never to sue them. It was never to sue them. I've been involved with maybe 3 lawsuits in my life that, one of them was against an insurance company that owed me money and wouldn't pay, which I won. But, it's just a waste of time and energy.
I mean, to fast forward a little bit here, you started Napa Legal to help organizations, nonprofits avoid the pitfalls that perhaps they would fall into with the secular world. What's your advice to them, having been a lawyer, seeing it, and why was it so important for you to start a Napa Legal? Yeah,
Napa Legal is focused on preventive maintenance. It's corporate governance. We have great organizations, Alliance Defending Freedom, Beckett, so forth, that defend people that are being wronged in the religious world. And that's part of the reason why you need Napa Legal, because if you follow the great precedent that's been established in our country for religious freedom, you're not going to get any trouble. But most nonprofits are small businesses, and they don't have access to legal and financial advice. And so we wanted to develop a very inexpensive way of allowing them to incorporate properly, set up a board properly. And we're now using AI to develop all of our systems and put them into AI where the layperson can just ask a question. It'll provide them the information that they need so that, they may retain a lawyer, but instead of a lawyer spending 10 hours, they can just go to our AI and do it in an hour. I mean, we give them every form, everything you want is there.
Do you catch a lot of flack from your lawyer friends for, I guess, to me, it would sound like you're putting them out of business. Like, Tim, you're giving our business to AI, which is doing it for free.
Not really. I think AI is going to put a lot of lawyers out of business, thank God.
Thank God.
Yeah, thank God. Less lawyers. We have too many lawyers in our country, especially litigators. But I think we ought to solve all of our litigation through AI. I mean, once it gets mature, there's no reason why we just can't brief AI and let AI make the decision based on certain rubrics and case law that's in place. We need to get more efficient in a lot of areas, and the legal is very inefficient. And so our goal there is that most of these apostolates can't afford a lawyer. If they do get one, it's pro bono. And so we're trying to make it easier for the guy that's doing pro bono work to get all the answers so that if they're not expert in a particular area, like religious freedom, they can get expert really quick.
So do you see Napa Legal perhaps a year ago or today serving clients, whereas in the future it's feeding AI the sources and the case law, et cetera, for the individual to be able to go to?
We've never actually represented clients. We've always supported the apostolate and their lawyers.
Okay.
I wanted to do that, but there's liability. I could care less about that. That's what you buy malpractice for, but they didn't want to do that. So we stayed in just providing information. We also now have a good consular program where we take young Catholic lawyers and we train them on incorporating their faith into their practice.
Okay.
That's is a little different from the initial program, but one of our big funders is Leonard Leo, who founded the Federalist Society, and he sees this as another networking opportunity to create good, solid Catholic lawyers. We just had Bill Barr address the lawyers about 3 weeks ago at Catholic U Law School.
Correlate that for me from Napa Legal dealing with lawyers and bringing that into the law firms and you and bringing your faith into business. I mean, what are the similarities you're seeing between law firms and just your typical business, whether it be the winery or hotels, et cetera?
Well, I think a disproportionate amount of lawyers are Catholic. I think the Catholic commitments and faith, very similar to Jewish. I mean, the Jewish people had disproportionate, probably still do, of lawyers because they're brought up to be highly educated and to advance in their careers. I think Catholics, especially in the last 50, 60 years, have been that way. So we have there's 9 justices on the Supreme Court, 6 are Catholic. One is practicing as an Anglican, Gorsuch, but he was baptized Catholic, and the other 3 are Jewish. So there you go. And you look at the Trump administration, you look at Congress and the Senate, disproportionate amount of Catholics. They're really committed. Where first 100 years of our society, Catholics weren't able to hold office at all. In some states, they couldn't hold property. They couldn't own property. And to imagine that today they control 35% of public companies are run by Catholics, which is not, we don't have 35% of the culture. We have about 22 or 23%. So I think it's a discipline that works. But getting back to faith in the business, I think this is the future. I mean, we're seeing today in major companies, I'm talking technology companies that tend to be progressive and woke, they're now having Bible studies. They're having masses celebrated in their corporate headquarters at Microsoft. this is really good news.
Yeah.
And we get more faith into our business sector. Like Legatus has been all about that since the 1980s, 1987. And I think it's starting to take hold.
Yeah. Well, thank God. I mean, I've often shared that Tom feels somewhat of a sin of omission for not having Legatus grow quicker and be more represented to help avert some of these issues in society that we're facing today. And perhaps we wouldn't be facing the abortion issues or the gender issues or the general wokeness. But I want to go back a little bit to the 80s because, I mean, you grew up as a Catholic, as a strong Catholic, but I mean, you really dug your heels into your faith after going to, public state colleges and law schools. Why?
That's a really good question. My faith really was inspired. My father was Catholic. My mother converted when I was in 6th grade. But they went to Mass every Sunday, but they weren't daily communicants. And I had the Dominican Sisters of Adrian, which are very similar to what the Dominican Sisters of Ann Arbor are today.
Okay.
And one nun, when I was in 3rd grade, said, you should go to Mass beyond just Sunday. And so I took it I'm going to go Mass every day. So believe it or not, since I was in 3rd grade, I went to Mass every day until I was a senior in high school. Everybody was positive I was going to be a priest, except for me. I was pretty sure I wasn't going to be a priest. But I did hang out with priests. I always do. I always have, and I always will. I love being with the priest. And my wife jokes around, you're closer to them than you are with me. Not really, but, I do enjoy them. I enjoy their commitment to the faith. Mm-hmm. And so that solidified. When I went to college, I would go maybe once a weekend on top of Sunday, but I didn't really continue the daily Mass until I was age 35, which is when I joined Legatus. Mm-hmm. And I saw Tom Monahan going every day.
You joined here in Ann Arbor?
Actually, I joined in Orange County.
Oh, you did? Okay.
I was going to join it. It was one chapter here. The original chapter, I guess they call it Genesis now.
Yeah, it's a subject of contention, but Genesis.
So, and a friend of mine was in it, and he said, you need to be in Legatus. You're so Catholic. I said, oh, okay. And, but then I was moving to California, and Legatus said, well, we only have one chapter west of the Mississippi. It's in Orange County. I said, that's where I'm moving. And there were 11 families there.
Wow.
But getting back to that, it changed my life because I all of a sudden realized I could be successful and still have a faith life. Yeah. And as foreign as that may sound, that didn't exist in my mind. And I was billing by the hour, and to take off and find a Mass and then have one less hour to bill. I used to get to the office at 6 a.m. And Mass was at 6:30. So I wouldn't get to the office till 7:15 a.m. and I would lose, over an hour billing. And I know that sounds crazy, but that's what I was thinking. And I started going to Mass and realized Mass actually creates more opportunity, not less, for the grace of God. Carl Karcher, who ran Carl's Jr., which is a very successful fast food. They've never been able to replicate it in California, what he's done there. And of course, he's been gone many years. He went to Mass every day too. And he was in that 11 families in that Legatus chapter. Wow. Because of Legatus, I ended up bailing him out with a client when he went almost broke. And it was because of our relationship in Legatus that I was able to broker a deal that he trusted and bailed him out of trouble. And,
that's one of the great, byproducts of Legatus is you're building, I should say, one of the purposes is you're building this community of like-minded people. And you then ultimately did a lot of business with Legatus members, which I've often, talked about and heard people talk about, the Jews really do this well. They support each other. As Catholics, we need to do the same. So it sounds like from the very beginning of you really launching your law firm, you wore your faith on your sleeve, which I think is more of a rare thing because I think a lot of people become successful or, get to the top and then realize, they can start practicing their faith more publicly. But you did it from the very beginning. I mean, did you ever look back and think, if I just didn't bring my faith into this, I would have gotten this piece of business and I could have then ultimately did something more for the faith, or, any regrets there?
No, I've never can point to any example of where that happened. I'm sure it did, but I don't even know it did. And I followed the principles that you guys espouse, daily rosary, daily mass, regular confession. And so I have a spiritual director. I go to confession at least once a month. Some people go once a week, but I go once a month. And it's served me well. And I've adopted that at Napa Institute, the same as folks. I just gave 2 commencements, and both of them to Catholic universities, very solid Catholic universities, and said, don't ever forget daily mass, daily rosary, regular confession, adoration 1 hour a week. At Franciscan, they have perpetual adoration. University of Mary, perpetual adoration during the academic year, not during the summer. That's why they're successful.
Yeah.
I told them in the commencement, it's like a nuclear reactor to the school. It keeps the school focused when you got perpetual adoration. So, I think today I have never had pushback about being faithful. Yeah. It's only been positive. People say, oh, it must have been really hard in California. You were trying to do your faith, and obviously everybody hated that.
Yeah.
If they did, they never let me know. And I really have never had one email or one comment by any employee for talking about God, leading in prayer at a function. And I say this because don't be afraid. The devil wants you to be afraid. There's nothing to be afraid of.
So as the CEO of a company and several companies, you've got employees of all walks of life, and you just, shared, don't shy away. But what's your advice to those that might be watching that aren't at the top, that are just the employee that may not have a great Catholic CEO like you running the business? How might they live out their faith practically, where if you kind of put yourself outside of the spectrum here and objectively, how could they do it without, catching flack or getting bullied, or maybe that is their calling to do? But what's your suggestion?
It. If they're at a company that is going to discriminate against them because they're outwardly faithful, then they're probably at the wrong company. And what I often get when employees leave to go someplace else, or when they come, it's always about the faith. It's like, I hate to leave this because I'll never find this again. But I think as employees, somebody's originating these masses and Bible studies in these public companies, especially what you would think would be more progressive companies like tech. So I think that large companies are being much more sensitive to the fact that faith should be part of people's lives, and they're going to be better employees if they have faith. Less likely to steal from you, more likely to not cut corners and try to do things the right way. So I think we're in a very, very positive environment today that hasn't always existed. When Tom started in the 1980s, this idea of an lay apostolate, those didn't exist. I mean, you had the Knights of Columbus and some of that kind of stuff, but there was no startup lay apostolates running around in the 1980s. And I think the faith was compartmentalized. It was Sunday is your faith day, and really went through some of those administrations that were very hostile, especially the Catholics. That had to be tough, but today that's not it. That's not the case. I mean, we saw that in the last administration, ironically under a Catholic president, but you surely don't have it now. Yeah.
Why was it so important for you? I've visited many of your properties and have noticed you put a chapel in all your. Why is that important to you?
I have a chapel now in 4 hotels. The first one I put in 20 years ago in Napa, which is still there. And
Named appropriately Our Lady of the Grapes.
Our Lady of the Grapes, right. It really, Tom Monahan started my initiative to build chapels. So I have 8 of them, including my homes and stuff in my office. And I was at Mass here at Domino's yesterday, and I've been coming there for as long as he's had it.
Mm-hmm.
And this is where the idea started. And so I think when you build a chapel, it says something about you, because not too many people are doing that.
Yeah.
And we let priests stay for free. We probably had 300 priests use the program. I walk all over the country, and I'll have people come up to me and say, "You don't know me, but I stayed at your hotel under your clergy hospitality program." And it's expensive, but the Lord's given me the money, so why not? And what I'm really hoping that we get more people attending the masses, or that's marketing it better, which we're working on. But I do get letters from guests saying, I hadn't been to Mass in 40 years. And this guy was in his bathing suit next to me, and it was a Catholic priest. And he said, "You want to come to Mass?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "I'm a priest. There's a Mass here tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. You want to come?" And they go, "Okay." Of course, they don't show up the first day.
Yeah.
So then he comes back and says, "Hey, I was waiting for you up there. You didn't make the Mass." And the next day they showed up. And they had an incredible experience going to confession, having an ability to talk. We found them where they were.
Mm-hmm.
They weren't in a Catholic church. They weren't lined up at a confessional. They were just basking in the sun of Kauai.
Yeah.
And those are the kind of stories that I get, and they're so touching.
That makes it worth it just for those stories.
Yeah.
Even if it were just one soul that was saved. That's amazing to hear.
Yeah, and great for the priest. I said, "Look, you guys are there, and if you're walking around and somebody asks for a confession or a spiritual direction, that's part of the deal, the Mass, and you aid people." One day, a guy stormed into the chapel. I was there, and he goes, "My father just died. He just died. I don't know what happened." So the priest said, "Okay, settle down. Come over here, son." And then I kind of got out of there. We were done with Mass.
Mm-hmm.
And he spent an hour and a half with the guy, walking him off the ledge because he lost his father. And he was visibly troubled.
Well, I think that the fact that he was likely given that foundational aspect of the faith, and maybe he had left it, or maybe he was inactive, but the first place you go to when tragedy hits you, is your faith. He went to the chapel. But when 9/11 happened, when all these tragedies happen in our world, what's the first thing that happens? The churches fill up and they say, pray for me, pray for our world, etc. And I think that's just, it goes back to just having that strong foundation in the faith that is so important as parents, for us as parents to instill into our kids and grandkids. You talk about joining the chapter in Orange County. What happened, though, to cause you to start then 13? I mean, we have 90 charter chapters now, more in development, but 13 of those have their roots in Tim Busch. I mean, what lit your fire to then spread it? Yeah.
As part of this entrepreneurial initiative, my daughter does this too. It's hard to articulate, but first of all, I started working on Orange County. We had 11 couples. We built it up fairly large. Many of them have died, or they lost their spouses. They left because they're now in their 80s. They were older than me. I found that I came back to Tom, who was in Dearborn. They were having one of the initial summits. There were 200 people there, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I went up to him and said, crazy words, "I'm going to start you 10 chapters in California." He looked at me and goes, "I hope you do." Probably walked out and said, "That's a crazy man."
Yeah.
And we did. We went over 10 in California, and I had a lot of fun. And by the way, we were talking about doing business with people. A lot of those chapters that I created ended up, guys started doing business with me because they got to know me and know what I did. And I had a guy in my office last week. He's 86 years old. His wife's passed away. And I met him when he became the president of the Pasadena chapter, which I started.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to know him there. And then I knew a lot of people in Pasadena and became friends and clients and investors with us, and still are. Sometimes it's their kids, because in another case, the guy's dead.
Yeah.
So it ended up being, that's not why I did it, but it ended up being very, very helpful. I just enjoyed it. It was really, I have to do things. I'm a doer.
Yeah.
And not everybody is, and not everybody needs to be. But when I'm doing something, getting things done, I'm immersing myself in what I'm doing.
Yeah.
And so it's been a great dividend. I stepped back and I applied to go into YPO, which is how Tom founded Legatus. Mm-hmm. And I was turned down. And because I was a lawyer, they didn't want a lot of lawyers, even though my business qualified. They didn't want lawyers. They wanted business guys. And I wasn't in the hotel business at the time. And the next week is when I heard about Legatus. So that's the old one door shuts, the other one opens. Yeah. Had I gotten involved with YPO, I would have been so immersed with YPO, a secular organization where faith is not abound. And I would have never gotten involved with Legatus, which is where I belong.
Yeah. So
God's providence, we talk about coincidences and all this. There's no coincidences. Yeah. We're just not paying attention. You know, when something like that happens, I look back and say, God was watching after me. You know, when I tell YPOers that I was turned down to go on YPO, they're like nuts. I mean, what do you mean you're turned down?
Yeah.
And I go, I was turned down. I applied and they told me I can't go. So.
Did Legatus feed you then once you started the hotel businesses? I mean, did you ever have this inkling to go into YPO, or was it, like I don't need that, obviously, because I've got.
I never looked back.
Yeah.
But I tell you, I never took a philosophy or theology course in my life. That's the beautiful thing about the business school at Catholic U is half your courses are in those subjects.
Mm-hmm.
My dad said, do not waste your time taking any of these silly courses where you're not going to, get a job. And that was the belief of that era, right? You got to get a job.
Mm-hmm.
And so I did business. Econ was my liberal arts, economics. But, it was, I never took any of those courses and I missed it. But Legatus are the courses. The speakers, they teach you so much. My wife was married for 15 years to me. And most of those years, 13 of the 15 before she converted, she went to every Legatus meeting. But she wasn't Catholic.
Planting those seeds.
Yeah. And so she knew more about Catholicism than the RCIA director that was teaching her. And she found that to be a waste of time. I said, well, honey, not everybody has gone to 13 years worth of Legatus meetings every single month.
Yeah.
And so she finally converted, and it's been a great situation. But Legatus is formational, and liturgy, and really everything that Napa, which is not a membership model, Napa Institute does is feeding those things of fraternity, liturgy, and faith formation. Those are our three pillars. They're the three pillars of Legatus.
Yeah. So let's talk about that. So you served on the national board and developed a relationship with Father Spitzer.
Yes.
And then tell us what happened after that.
So I was on the national board with Tom. It was really enjoyable. But Tom and I are both entrepreneurs, and sometimes when you have two entrepreneurs in the same room, it can get pretty dicey.
You don't say.
Yeah. So it got a little dicey. And one day he said, Tim, I don't think this is for you. And I said, okay. I was stunned. I was like, oh my gosh, how could I do this? How could this happen? And, but you know what? It was another one of those providential things. It allowed me, I stayed in Legatus. I didn't leave. I was active then and still active today. But what it led to, Napa came later. In 2000, I was at the summit and the Biltmore in Phoenix. And I heard Spitzer speak. And I thought, whoa, this guy's unbelievable.
Yeah, off the chain.
And so I invited him to give it was actually a Legatus type event because it was all Legatus people. I did a regional, because I started a regional organization where the presidents of all of the chapters that I had started would get together every quarter and talk about what's going on. And so it was within the Legatus framework, but it wasn't a Legatus sponsored item. It was just something I did because I was local there. And so I asked Father to come and do a retreat for me in 2000, and he did. And I was like, man, I got to get to know this guy. So I told him, we were talking about this weekend because we were together. I said, Father, I chased you for 6 months. You were too busy to answer my telephone call. You didn't want to do anything social. And finally, I lassoed you, and we started the Napa Institute together while he was president of Gonzaga University.
And what was the Napa focus?
Napa started out, we were going to do silent retreats for executives, Jesuit retreats.
Okay.
That was like pulling teeth. No business guy wants to go on a silent retreat. I was even scared, but I said, I'm running this thing. I better go.
How long was the retreat?
We shortened it. So we started on Thursday afternoon and finished up on Monday afternoon. Okay. So it was an 8-day, but we couldn't get people. So then gradually Father wanted to start the Reason and Faith Center, which is really what he does now.
And then from that relationship with Father Spitzer and Magus developed Napa.
Correct.
And what did you see missing that Napa fills? And then how has it progressed from that point to today?
Yeah. Well, I didn't want it at all be competitive to Legatus. So I set the conference in July on the West Coast. And Legatus had flirted around, done some West Coast things. I actually did one at my hotel in 2006 when it first opened. The first year, over 50% were Legatus members. John.
Well, they're your friends, relationships. Yeah. I mean, this is how things happen, right?
They came. And EWTN has filmed every conference since the beginning.
Oh, wow.
And every single one. And now we have all of those talks. Now, even the breakouts, we record those too. And we have all of them in YouTube. And so people, when they Google something, if it's on guardian angels or plenary indulgence or any of these kind of things, there's something that Napa has out there.
Content and formation. Yeah.
Over 15, 16 years this year. So we started Napa right inside of Magus, and then I realized this is a whole different organization. Yeah. I'm going to spin it off, Father. You can be the president. I'll be the chairman. And then you be the, you run Magus, and I'm still on your board. I was his chairman of the board for many, many years. And I'm the vice chairman right now. But it was great. And we got a whole new board, a whole new initiative. It's been interesting.
What business advice would you give the 25-year-old Tim Busch if you could go back in time?
Yeah, none of us really know what God has in store for us. I don't know what God has in store for me for the rest of my life, however long that might last. But I say your faith's one thing that you can count on, and you want to focus on your faith, but you can pursue a career, be honest and sincere in your business, be fair, work as hard as you can and you can justify, but it shouldn't be one or the other.
Yeah,
it's both. As a matter of fact, the faith will drive your secular success.
Yeah, from the very beginning, Tom's focus has been with Legatus to form the CEO, presidents, the members and their spouses, so that they could then go out and impact the world. And Tim, you've definitely done that in spades. So I just want to say thank you for your example and in all aspects. Again, we didn't talk enough about the wine, about the school, Napa. I mean, there's just a ton of things that are attributed to you and Steph, and I just thank you for your example in the business world and from the Catholic faith perspective as well.
Thank you for your leadership here in Legatus. It's been great.
Thanks, Tim.